Juist. Late September. The beach is empty. The sky thick with grey. The wind tastes like salt. The tide was crawling in slow that evening, flat and heavy, pulling cold air up over the dunes. The beach had cleared hours ago. Locals knew better than to linger when the sky turned that kind of colour, the kind that warned. Don't trust the calm. Tourists were long gone. The September breeze too rough for their liking. Katara didn't know that yet. She walked the shoreline in a soft sweater, too thin for the wind. Her arms crossed tight over her chest, hair pulled back, loose strands moving with the wind. She didn't look lost, not exactly, just hollow. Like someone who hadn't spoken to anyone in days. Like someone hoping the sea might answer a question she couldn't form. She barely noticed the figure until she was right in his path. "You shouldn't be out here." The voice came low and sudden. Not unkind, just matter of fact. Commanding in a quiet way that can cut through the wind. She stopped, startled, looked up. A man stood just a few feet away, hair wet from the surf, hoodie pushed back. Sun-tanned skin and a strong jaw that hadn't been clean-shaved for a week or two. His brown eyes weren't warm, but they weren't cold either. More like unreadable. "Why?" she asked, a little sharper than she meant to. "I'm not a tourist, I live here." He nodded once, slow, eyes scanning her, loose curls framing her face, the sand caked to her shoes, the way her arms crossed over her chest. Storms rolling in. Currents get wild around the jetty. People don't always come back. She squinted toward the dark water. For a second she considered ignoring him, but something in his tone, steady, factual, experienced, made her hesitate. "I wasn't planning on swimming." She hugged herself tighter. "Just needed air." He tilted his head slightly, like he understood something she didn't say. But he didn't pry. "All right," he said. "Then breathe inland. You'll thank me when the rain hits in 10. And then he turned, started walking. She stared after him. "What's your name?" she called out, without meaning to. He paused just long enough to glance over his shoulder. "Rhys." And he kept going, like it was nothing. But her heart thudded strangely as she watched his back fade towards the dunes. She didn't know it yet, but she just met the man who would both undo and remake her. Katara stood there long after Rhys disappeared over the dunes. The sound of the wind tangled in her ears, sharp, rushing. The kind of sound that made you feel like you were the only person on Earth. He hadn't been rude. He hadn't raised his voice or looked down on her, but still, that tone, that certainty, the way he knew better. She hated that. She hated how something in his voice reminded her of people who used to tell her how to live, how to breathe, what was safe, what was smart, as if she hadn't been taking care of herself since she was 14. "Breathe inland," he'd said. God. He didn't know her. Didn't know what the storm outside was nothing compared to the one that she carried in her chest, but still, he noticed her. He warned her. There were no threats in his words, only fact. And something else, barely visible under the calm, like he was quietly checking for exits in every room. Like he knew what could go wrong, because he'd already lived it. She didn't like being cared for by strangers. But she also didn't like the way it warmed her chest to think, just maybe, he had. By the time she got back to the beach house, the rain had started. Soft and whispering at first, like it was politely asking to fall before being poured. She left her wet shoes by the door and pulled the sweater tighter around herself, moving straight to the windows that looked over the ocean. Dark sky, wavering horizon, and that same strange pull in her chest she hadn't shaken since hearing his name. Rhys. She said it out loud to the empty room, testing the sound. It tasted like something she shouldn't get used to. Morning light in Juist doesn't rise. It stretches, slow, warm, soft. Like the town itself is reluctant to wake up. The bakery sat on the corner of Shoreline in Maine. A small but tall brick house, a whitewashed wooden sign hanging over the entrance. Millie's Bakery, hand-painted in soft gold letters. Its windows fogged slightly from the heat of the ovens that had been running since before sunrise. The scent spilled out into the street. Fresh bread, cinnamon, melting butter. Katara pushed open the wooden door, a small bell above chiming softly. It wasn't busy. A few old men gathered around the table by the window, mugs of coffee in hand, talking about sailing, politics, the usual island talks. Everyone looked up when she stepped in, not unkindly, just noticing her. The woman behind the counter, mid-50s, red apron dusted in flour, long grey hair tied back into a low bun, hummed softly. Her smile was easy. "You're new," she said without accusation, just fact. Katara gave a small smile back. "Guilty. I've seen you walk the beach. You moved into the Evans house on Driftwood." Katara nodded, a bit stiffly. She was still not used to being seen. "Yeah, I moved in a week ago." "Katara." "Millie," the woman said softly. "Welcome to Juist, sweetheart. What can I get you?" Katara looked over the display. Cinnamon rolls still warm, a fresh batch of seeded bread, flaky and golden croissants near the back, blueberry scones. "One of those, please," she said, pointing at the croissants. "And a coffee, with oat milk if you have that." Millie nodded, already reaching for the paper bag. "You settling in all right?" Katara hesitated. "Trying to." She offered a small smile. "It's quiet." "You're good at quiet," Millie said knowingly. "Sometimes too good." Katara didn't know what that meant, but something in the woman's eyes made her wonder. There were stories here. Still waters. Unspoken things. As Millie handed her the coffee, the bell chimed behind her. Someone else stepped in. She didn't have to look to know who it was. The pause in the air, that stillness. He gave a quiet nod to Millie and moved towards the back, grabbing a paper cup for coffee. She didn't think he'd seen her at first, but as he turned, eyes scanning the room briefly, his gaze met hers. No surprise, no greeting, just a slow, unreadable blink, like he'd expected to find her there. She straightened slightly, unsure if she wanted to acknowledge him. The bakery was too small to pretend that he wasn't here, but saying something felt exposed. Still, she lifted her chin just a little. Guess the rain didn't drown me. His mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. Told you to breathe inland. She narrowed her eyes, but the corner of her mouth curved despite herself. You always talk like you're writing fortune cookies. Only when I haven't had coffee. And then he nodded once to Millie, left a few bills on the counter and walked out, coffee in hand. Katara stared after him for a moment. Quiet towns, she thought. Loud men. Somewhere between the tide and the silence, Rhys had learned to live without wanting much, until recently. He wasn't used to people like her. People who walked like they were running from something, but didn't want to be caught. People who didn't flinch when he was blunt, didn't giggle or flatter him or try to fix him, didn't apologize for the shadows in their eyes. Katara Evans had an edge to her. Quiet, but sharp. She wore pain like a second skin, and he recognized it because it was the only language he still spoke fluently. He hadn't meant to talk to her on the beach that day, just doing his rounds, checking the tides, making sure no one was stupid enough to get caught out there before the storm came in. But there she was, standing too still, breathing like she hadn't in days. The next day started the same as most. Early shift, salt in the air, locals jogging past the shore. He was adjusting the board rack near the lifeguard station, boots in the sand, hoodie zipped all the way, when a voice hit him from behind. "Rhys! Hey, hold up!" He turned and immediately frowned. Max Carrington, local surf guy turned semi-decent guide. Chatty, too tan, often in trouble. "What?" Rhys asked dryly. Max scratched the back of his neck. "So, look, not to drop stuff on you, but the new girl, the one living on Driftwood, Katara?" His body tensed. He kept his expression blank. "What about her?" "Saw her walking near the old pier path. You know, the one with the fence down?" Max looked uncomfortable now. "She tripped off something, man. I didn't see exactly, but I heard her yell. I think she's stuck down the slope near the cliff edge." Rhys was already moving. The pier path hadn't been safe in years. The slope was a mess of loose rock and damp leaves. One wrong step and you'd find yourself 30 feet down a sharp drop. He found her halfway down. Knees cut up. One foot lodged under a jagged branch of sea buckthorn. Her face flushed, breathing heavy, not from pain, but from frustration. "You're bleeding," he said, dropping to crouch beside her. "I noticed," she muttered, jaw clenched. "And before you ask, I'm fine. I just need to..." She winced as she tried to shift her ankle. "Get unstuck." He looked over her calmly. Still breathing normally, pupils focused, no sign of shock, but that tremble in her hands told him enough. "Don't move." He placed a hand gently on her shin. "Branches wedged. You'll tear the skin if you force it." "I can do it." "Stop," he said, firmer now. "Let me help." She froze, not from fear, from instinct. Like a part of her didn't know how to accept help even if she wanted to. He moved carefully, breaking the branch at its thickest point, then freeing her foot in one smooth motion. She gasped, but didn't cry out. "Told you it's not safe out here," he muttered in a low voice. "I'm not fragile, Rhys," she snapped back, face hot with shame. "You didn't have to rescue me every time I step outside." "Didn't say you were," he replied, standing slowly, offering his hand. But I'm here, so I will. Her eyes searched his like she was trying to find the catch, trying to figure out what he wanted from her. The truth was, he didn't know either. But something about her pulled at pieces of him that hadn't moved in years. When she finally reached out and let him help her up, his hand closed around hers gently, but firmly. "You're limping," he said. "You're observant." But she didn't let go of his hand right away, and he helped her up to the lifeguard post. Rhys unlocked the weather-beaten door of the tower and gestured her inside. Katara hesitated on the bottom step. From here you could see the whole beach, the long wooden path stretching down towards the beach, the waves hitting the beach line, the bakery's rooftop in the distance, the lighthouse on the other end of the shore. It was quiet. Too quiet for how fast her heart was thudding in her chest. Still, she followed him. The inside of the tower was utilitarian. A first aid cabinet, radio on the wall, rescue gear stacked neatly in the corner. A stretcher, a small table and chair, a little desk with a desktop, and an open window with the wind curling in. He motioned to the stretcher beneath the window. "Sit." She did, brushing away the dried dirt on the back of her cough as she exhaled. He knelt down in front of her, pulling out gauze, antiseptic, a roll of tape. His hands were steady. Hers weren't. "You do this a lot?" she asked, trying to fill the silence. "More than I'd like," he said quietly. "People think they're invincible until the ground gives out." Her eyes flicked down to him. "That's supposed to be a metaphor?" He glanced up just briefly, a flash of something behind his calm exterior. Wry humor, maybe. Or something heavier. "Maybe." She winced as he dabbed the wound on her knee. He didn't apologize, but he did slow down. "You got grit," he said suddenly, voice slower now. "Most people would have cried, or panicked, getting stuck down that slope. You just looked angry." Katara let out a bitter breath. "I am angry." "At what?" That stilled her. The answer was too big, too ugly. "At everything," she said finally. "At myself, at how long it took me to leave, at how much I still feel something when I thought I was numb, at the way that peace makes me paranoid. Like I don't deserve it." Rhys didn't respond. Not right away. Just finished patching her up in silence. His touch careful, his presence solid. Only when he was done did he speak again. "I used to think quiet meant the danger was coming." His voice was rough, honest. "Then I learned sometimes quiet is the healing. You just don't recognize it until you stop running." Her chest ached at that. He stood and leaned back against the window frame, watching her. "Why did you really come here, Katara?" he asked. Not accusing, not pressing, just asking. She looked at him, and for once, she didn't lie. "To stop pretending I was okay." It was quiet again, but this time it didn't feel heavy. It felt like something was slowly being seen. Katara stayed seated a moment longer after he finished bandaging her. Rhys had gone quiet again, back to his post on the porch. His arms were crossed now, gazed fixed out on the water like it held answers he hadn't quite found yet. She hated how steady he seemed. She hated even more just how much she wanted to feel steady too. The breeze shifted, carrying the smell of salt and kelp and something citrus, probably the antiseptic he'd used. She ran a hand along the clean gauze on her knee. His work was precise, like everything else about him. "Thank you," she said eventually, her voice careful. Rhys didn't look at her, but gave a small nod. She stood slowly, testing her ankle. It throbbed, but it held. "Because I'll let you get back to doing your job," she added. Still, no reaction. His silence this time felt different. Less brooding, more protective. Like he was holding something down. She moved to the door. "You're not from here," he said, just as her hand touched the railing of the stairs. She paused. "Neither are you." A muscle twitched in his jaw. He let out a breath through his nose, half amused, half exhale of something buried. "People like us," he said. "We don't land in places like this unless we're running or rebuilding. And you don't look like you've started rebuilding yet." She turned back, eyes narrowing. "You don't know me," she said, tone sharper than intended. "Didn't say I did." He met her gaze now, solid and unmoving, but I recognized the look. Katara didn't respond, just stood there, heart pressed against her ribs. It scared her, that someone could see through her that quickly. And worse, she didn't want to run from it. A voice echoed from down the beach. "Rhys, you coming? We've got that tide check with Sam." Rhys turned toward them briefly, then looked back at her. "Take care of your ankle," he said simply. "Don't push it." She nodded once, then left, down the stairs. Back on the beach, the sand felt colder under her feet now, the wind heavier. Katara walked slowly towards the shore, the pain in her ankle matching the twist in her chest. She wasn't used to someone breaking her walls without even trying. And Rhys didn't even ask her to let him in. A week later, Friday night, Juist's only real bar. The lantern wasn't fancy, but it had character. Exposed wooden beams, fishing nets hung for decoration, a long bar with leather seat bar stools, and a jukebox that mostly played soft rock unless someone aggressive enough pushed in coins for something more chaotic. It was the kind of place where the bartender knew everyone's drink before they sat down, and strangers stuck out like bruises. Katara had been here just once before, the night she moved in. But tonight, she needed the noise. The light hum of conversation, the occasional burst of laughter, a good drink. She wore a loose black silky blouse, tight jeans, and boots. Her dark brown hair curling down her back. A low-rise glass of bourbon sitting in front of her. Across the room, Sienna, the art teacher she'd met at the local supply store, raised her glass and smiled. Katara offered a soft one back. Sienna had been kind, chatty, observant, not pushy. She was here tonight too, seated with a few others, locals who grew up together, dated each other, forgave each other. People whose roots went too deep to untangle. Katara didn't belong. But for once, she didn't feel like she had to. Loosening up tonight, said a voice beside her. She turned slightly. It was Sean, the owner of the surf shop. Late 30s, sun-worn skin, disarming smile. Just here for a good drink, she said. You got that look, he said, taking a sip of his whiskey. What look's that? Like you're building a fence, but don't have enough wood. She laughed unexpectedly, short and low. Poetic. Blame the whiskey. I write dumb metaphors when I drink. He paused. You're alright, though. You should come out more. The silence here is good, but the people aren't bad either. Once you've cracked us open. She nodded, unsure how to respond to kindness when it wasn't expected. You know Rhys? Sean asked after a beat, casually, like he was talking about the weather. Her heart caught. He didn't flinch. Not visibly. Not really. Why? He asked about you the other day. That sent a current down her spine. What did he say? She asked, not looking at him. Sean shrugged. Just wanted to know if you were settling in. If you were okay. Said you looked a little haunted. That stung. But it wasn't wrong. She downed the rest of her drink in a breath. The burn was sharp. Necessary. You and Rhys are close? She asked. We used to be. Before we shut the world out. Men's got ghosts. But we all do, don't we? Katara exhaled, pressing the empty glass into the bar. The bar grew louder. Music picking up. More laughter. A few people dancing in the cramped space by the jukebox. Someone handed her another drink without asking. Probably one of Sienna's friends. And she accepted it without comment. But even as the world spun more freely around her, her eyes drifted towards the door. Once. Twice. He wouldn't come. She hadn't seen him since the tower. The air had changed. Thicker now. The kind of fog that hugged the coastline and blurred the world at the edges. Katara stepped out of the bar, the door swinging shut behind her with a clang. She needed air. Something colder than the heat crawling under her skin. The bourbon made her limbs loose, but her thoughts loud. Too loud. She pulled her coat tighter across her chest and wandered past the gravel lot, shoes crunching against the wet sand. Her breath fogged slightly as she exhaled. She needed a walk. Moving. Air. She'd never been down the shore by the lighthouse. The path her beach house stayed on, leading right down to it. The turning light of the big flash at its top, illuminating the dark water in circles. She didn't notice the silhouette at first, leaning against the railing just a few feet ahead, barely illuminated by the small dock light above the door of the entrance of the lighthouse. But then she did. Rhys. Same posture, same quiet intensity. One foot crossed over the other, arms folded, watching the water like it owed him answers. Her chest tightened. She could have turned back. He hadn't seen her yet. The fog was thick enough. She could pretend she needed to walk the other way, check her phone, go, "You okay?" His voice came low, like he'd felt her long before he saw her. She froze. Her voice caught somewhere between her throat and her pride. He turned toward her now, his eyes catching hers under the orange glow of the dock light. The wind pushed locks into her face, but she didn't move. Couldn't. "It's late," she said. Stupid. As if that explained why she was standing there like she'd wandered straight into something she couldn't get out of. You were at the bar. She gave a half smile. You've got eyes. He tilted his head. Unreadable. Wasn't watching you. The lie was clean. Almost believable. Didn't say you were, she murmured, stepping closer anyway. Her breath hitched slightly when she reached the railing beside him. The silence stretched. The ocean was just a sound in the dark now. A rhythm behind their quiet. Finally, Rhys shifted his weight, looked at her from the side. Not invasive, not too close, just enough. You don't look like yourself tonight. She laughed once, short and tired. What do I usually look like? He took a second. She could see it in the way his jaw flexed. Guarded. Like you're waiting for something to turn against you. Her throat closed. God, she hated him for being right. Tonight, you look like you let something in. But it's scratching in the inside of your ribs. That made her breath catch. She turned towards him fully now. Why are you like this? He blinked once. Like what? Quiet. Honest. Observant. Like you see too much and say too little. Rhys didn't respond right away. Because I've learned saying the wrong thing can break someone, even if you meant it right. That silence again. Not cold, not awkward, just full. Heavy with everything neither of them could say yet. I didn't like seeing you hurt last week, he added softly. Katara blinked slowly. She could feel the edge of something forming in her chest again. Something careful, something dangerous, something soft. I didn't like being seen, she whispered, then looked up at him. Katara didn't know how long she stared at him. Long enough to memorize the slope of his shoulders, the scar near his brow, the way his jaw tensed every time the silence got too heavy between them. She could feel it. The push and pull between them, like the tide below. And just like the ocean, it was never still. Rhys shifted, his knuckles grazing the metal rail. You ever let someone too deep, too fast? He asked suddenly, not looking at her now, voice quieter than before. And by the time you realize you've done it, it's too late to pull them out. The question didn't seem aimed at her, more like something he didn't mean to say out loud. Still, it hung between them. Katara swallowed. That's not really how it goes for me, she said, voice low. I don't let people in. I let them think I do. Rhys finally looked at her again. The fog made everything soft except his eyes. Why? Her answer came faster than she'd expected. Because the last time I did, I lost everything. I lost myself. The words had weight. She blinked quickly, but her voice didn't shake, just dropped quieter. So, now I control the story. I give just enough so they think they're reading the whole thing, but they never are. Rhys didn't speak for a while. The quiet buzz of the ocean felt miles away now. When he finally spoke, It was just above a whisper. You weren't faking that day at the tower. A statement. Gentle. Steady. Katara looked down, unable to meet his eyes. No, she admitted. And just like that, the wall cracked. I don't know why you get under my skin, Rhys. I don't know why I remember everything you say, even when I pretend I don't care. But it's like you walked into one part of me that I swore never to leave unlocked again. She exhaled, breath shaking, eyes glinting in the dark. And that terrifies me. For a long moment, Rhys said nothing. But then he did something she hadn't expected. He took a small step forward. Not touching her, not even brushing her, but the space between them disappeared. Me too, he said, voice low, thick with something you rarely let show. You terrify me too, she said it. And the words didn't just hang in the air, they cut through it. And that terrifies me. Rhys stared at her. Not the way a man watches someone fall apart, but the way someone watches a door open that's always been locked. A door that maybe shouldn't open at all. Her shoulders were tight, like she regretted the words the second they left her lips. He saw the flicker in her eyes. Panic. No. Vulnerability. And then, just like that, she pulled back. Her body shifted, her jaw clenched. The armor slammed shut. He knew that look. He wore it himself. Too many years to not recognize it on someone else. Katara, he started, but she was already turning. I have to go, she said quickly, not looking at him. Voice clipped. Her steps were sharp, sudden, boots crunching against the sand. His hand twitched at his side, a stupid instinctual urge to reach out. But he didn't. He never chased. That was rule number 1. But as he watched her walk back into the fog, her figure swallowed up by the night, something twisted deep in his gut. Something he hadn't felt in years. He let her walk away. But this time, it doesn't feel right. Rhys leaned forward, resting his forearms against the railing. His chest ached, like the pressure was building in a place he didn't know still had weight. The fog wrapped around him now. Cold, quiet. He stared at the dark ocean, and for the first time in a long damn while, he didn't feel steady.